Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Mavic Cabrera Baleza. I'm the founder and chief executive officer of the Global Network of Women Peace Builders, and I will be your moderator during this civil society briefing on the Generation uh, Equality, Women, Peace and Security, and Humanitarian Action Compact. This event is co-organized by the Global Network of Women Peace Builders and the Feminist Humanitarian Action Network in cooperation with UN Women. And I should also mention that the Global Network of Women Peace Builders and the Feminist Humanitarian Action Network are both civil society board members of the Compact, and UN Women serves as our very able and very supportive secretariat. We are holding this event almost on the eve of the Generation Equality Forum in Paris, which will take place from the 30th of June to the 2nd of July. And as some of you might know, the Compact on Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action is a result of the advocacy of civil society in the same tradition as the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325 on Women, Peace and Security that was also advocated for and co-drafted by civil society. So that means we co-own the Compact, and we as civil society are invested in it. And learning from the many years of work in humanitarian action and over 20 years of the Women, Peace and Security agenda, we don't want business as usual. We know that it is easy to make commitments, but it takes a lot more to turn them into achievements. We, civil society, want less talk and more action. And this is the message that we want to highlight at the Generation Equality Forum in Paris. As we all know, the Compact is an intergenerational, inclusive global movement for action on the existing commitments on women, peace and security and gender responsive humanitarian action. In this meeting, we will focus on the Compact framework, which lays out the ground for those specific actions. The framework outlines the gaps in the implementation. It also presents the existing commitments, but more specifically, it presents specific actions for the different stakeholders to the Compact, including member states, the UN agencies and entities, regional organizations, foundations, and of course, civil society. At this meeting, we want to specifically raise awareness about the framework, and we want to solicit greater support for the meaningful participation of national and local women's civil society, especially women's rights groups and youth rights organizations, in the effective implementation of the Compact's key actions. I would like to remind everyone that this will be an interactive discussion, and you received a question asking you to permit us to record. I hope all of you press that button, and we encourage the participants to use the chat function and the raise hand function of Zoom if you like to make interventions. I now would like to call on, without further ado, our very good friend, the Chief of Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action Section, Paivi Canisto, to tell us more about the Compact framework. Paivi, good afternoon, welcome, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mavic, and I am really excited to be here with you and with all the civil society participants. You know, it was really civil society that made this Compact happen. It was the civil society that highlighted need for attention for women, peace and security and gender in humanitarian action as part of a Generation Equality Forum. So it's a real pleasure and honor to be with all of you. And as Mavic well knows, I very much value the advice, views, guidance I can get from you here. Also, for us at UN Women as a secretariat of a compact, but you, the members, those who are members, you are really the leaders of this compact. So just a brief presentation on the compact. And what is the compact? And sorry if I'm reiterating some of the things you very well know, but it drives a movement for implementation of existing commitments on women, peace and security and humanitarian action. And specific ways are establishing a voluntary monitoring and accountability process to realize these existing commitments, strengthening coordination across existing mechanisms, systems, networks, partnerships and capacities, and promoting financing for and wider awareness and visibility of a women, peace and security agenda and on humanitarian action. So then let's go to the board members. The compact governance structure consists of board and catalytic members. And as mentioned, the board was chosen to provide strategic guidance in the development of a compact and plays a leading role in ensuring the success of a compact, including the coordination, monitoring and accountability processes. And here you will see the board members and catalytic members. This is the actual board members, and then catalytic members who have been integrally involved in the development of a compact framework and will support the board to ensure the success. So then let's look at the thematic issue areas of the compact. So there are now 5 thematic issue areas, and there have been 5 working groups that have been working to develop the contents of a compact. And these are financing the women, peace and security agenda and gender equality in humanitarian programming, women's meaningful participation in peace processes as well as in humanitarian processes, women's economic security, access to resources and other essential services, women's leadership and agency across peace, security and humanitarian sectors, and protection of women in conflict and crisis contexts, including women human rights defenders. So if we can move to the next one on development of compact. So working groups have sought to integrate the peace, security and humanitarian and development nexus, reflect the experiences and needs of young women, indigenous and minority groups, persons with disabilities, LGBTQI, and forcibly displaced women and girls. Identify the pressing gaps within the peace and security and humanitarian sectors, and determine achievable actions compact signatories can take in the next 5 years. So the compact framework. The compact framework has been developed to identify the current gaps we are facing in these 5 thematic areas. Also, actions that need to be taken in a 5-year period to see transformative change have been identified. We have specific actions for member states, UN entities, regional organizations, civil society organizations, private sector, and academia. So then, I mentioned signatories. So how can you become a signatory? And we are indeed calling on all of you to become a signatory to the compact. Signatories will select transformative actions across the thematic issue areas of women, peace, security, and humanitarian action compact. They actively engage in the implementation and monitoring of the compact over the next 5 years. may mobilize other stakeholders around the compact. And signatories will also identify financial policy, advocacy, and programmatic investments they will make to implement the actions they select. So indeed, we are hoping that all of you become a signatory. And here are 5 steps to become a signatory. First, review the compact framework. Second, select 1 or more actions from 5 thematic areas. 3, identify possible partners to collaborate on actions. 4, outline the level of investment that you will make to implement actions. And 5, go to the signatory website to register your actions. So some important dates at the end. So we will be accepting compact signatories before, during, and after the Paris Forum. If you want to be featured as a signatory during the compact launch, please sign up by June 28th, today. So today is the last day to sign if you want to be featured as a signatory. We look forward to welcoming you all at the compact launch on July 2nd. Make sure you register for the Paris Forum. And this is now a signature process or signing to the Paris Forum. You can register anytime, even during the forum itself. So it's extended until 2nd July. Okay, so basically that's how you can, well, I think most of you knew about the compact. You have been part of developing and providing the ideology for it. We really want you to become signatories to try this for the next 5 years, and looking forward to working with all of you to advance the implementation of women, peace and security and gender in humanitarian action. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Päivi, for that very comprehensive presentation and for reminding us to register our intent to be signatories of the compact on June. It's today, right? 28th of June to register our intent as signatory. Although, in order for us to be named or announced during the Paris, the launch of the compact on July 2nd. Although you also emphasize that the call is open to everyone, especially civil society, to sign up and register as signatories during, before, and after. But yeah, it just makes a lot of, a very, very encouraging result if we have a huge number of signatories by the launch of the compact. I now would like to present a short video that would inspire us even more, in addition to what Päivi has also already presented on what we can do as a civil society. Niku, are we ready with the video?
Niku, there's no sound. Would you please unmute yourself?
Niku, you need to remove your headphones if you have headphones on.
Did you know the Compact on Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action
has emerged as a result of continuous civil society advocacy particularly that of young women and women-led organizations led by the Global Network of Women Peace Builders.
In time for the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action and the 20th anniversary of the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325 on Women, Peace and Security.
To bring together key supporters and champions of the Women, Peace and Security and humanitarian action agendas, including youth.
Focus on monitoring accountability, coordination, and financing to implement women, peace and security and humanitarian action commitment.
By encouraging collaboration between governments, civil society, international and regional organizations, academia and private sector to catalyze accelerated progress on implementing the Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action Agenda.
Spark intersectional, global, and local conversations among generations.
Drive increased public and private investment and deliver concrete results for girls and women in conflict and crisis contexts.
Organizations and institutions can become signatories of the Compact on Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action by selecting specific transformative actions across the 5 issue areas of the Compact and by contributing actively to the implementation and monitoring of the Compact over the next 5 years.
Are you ready for Generation Equality Forum?
Yes, we are. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions to the video, and thanks to the formidable communications team of GNWP for putting that together in a very short time. Now, we will proceed to the interventions of the board members of the Compact, civil society board members of the Compact, to tell us what are the key action areas that you think they will contribute the most, and also to share why, from their perspectives, the Compact is a unique opportunity to further implement the Women, Peace and Security agenda and a gender-responsive humanitarian action framework. And we also would like to hear from them to tell us what difference does the Compact make in terms of our work for many years on these 2 important thematic areas of women, peace and security, and humanitarian action, and why it is critical that national and local women civil society groups and youth networks contribute actively to the attainment of the Compact's specific actions, and how do they see that being actually done. So without further ado, I would now like to call on Mimidu Achakpa, the steering committee member of the Feminist Humanitarian Network, and she's joining us from Nigeria. Like Paivi earlier, we've shared the short bios of the speakers, as we don't have the time to present them all. They're extensive and formidable. So please look at our chat function to see the bios of Mimidu and Paivi before her, and all the rest of the speakers. Mimidu, you have the microphone.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Let me start with the first question, which talks about the key action areas of the Compact that we as the Feminist Humanitarian Network think we can contribute the most, and why. As the Feminist Humanitarian Network, we are extremely pleased to have humanitarian action included in this Compact. The disproportionate impact of crisis on women and girls and the rights of women and girls impacted by emergencies is critical to include in our global commitments to advance the rights of women and girls everywhere. As a feminist humanitarian network and as women's rights organizations, networks, and feminist movements in the global south responding to humanitarian crisis, we think that the financing of our work as critical human actors will contribute the most. The lack of access to funding that women's rights organizations on the front lines of emergency response experience is undermining to our power and to the essential work that will lead to protect and advance women's rights. We undertake this work both when an emergency strikes and even go beyond the emergency. So, in other words, we are very pleased that this compact seeks to address this issue and that through it, member states will commit to providing direct assistance to women-led and women's rights organizations. This funding will ensure that our efforts are sustainable and will remove the barriers that stand in our way to ensure that the women we work with in communities have full access to their rights and can live lives that are free from violence. We are also extremely pleased that this compact commits signatories to recognize and support women's leadership and full, equal, and meaningful participation across peace, security, and humanitarian sectors. During the COVID-19 in 2020, at the initial stage of the COVID-19, the Feminist Humanitarian Network undertook research that documented clearly the extent to which women's rights organizations in the global south are excluded from decision-making in humanitarian action, and the lack of recognition that we receive for the essential frontline efforts that we lead. We see the compact as a unique opportunity to further implementation of the Women, Peace, Security, and Humanitarian Action frameworks, as it highlights the most critical commitments that humanitarian actors, and importantly, member states and UN agencies have already made to advancing the rights of women and girls in conflict and crisis-affected situations. Importantly, it is a framework that we as women-led organizations have contributed to. It is underpinned by feminist principles. As a feminist humanitarian network, we have engaged with the compact to ensure that it recognizes the diversity of women and girls, that it is inclusive, and that it recognizes and commits to ensuring our leadership in programmatic, funding, and policy decision-making. One of the most unique things that we as the Feminist Humanitarian Network recognize and value in the compact is its role in bringing together civil society actors, including grassroots women's rights organizations, with actors working at the global level. Our shared ownership of this compact positions women-led organizations in the global south to engage with global commitments and to contribute as part of a global framework to advancing women's rights and achieving the objectives that we have pushed for so long. But the work is not done yet, I must say. It is just beginning. Now, we as civil society signatories to the compact must work to ensure that this compact is owned by all women, including women in communities who have been excluded from engaging deeply with international instruments previously. This compact is an opportunity for women everywhere and in all of their diversity to hold humanitarian actors to account for ensuring that our rights are upheld and that the commitments that have been spoken about at length but are often not followed through are upheld. We will be working collectively to ensure that this compact is fully understood and owned by the women we work with, by supporting them to understand the commitments being made and what this compact means for all of us. We hope that everyone attending today and your networks will take ownership of it by signing up and making your own commitments. This is indeed an opportunity for us to hold powerful actors to account and to see action towards a more feminist world. As a feminist humanitarian network, our involvement in these spaces is to ensure that global level talks don't end in talk. We are committed to feminist informed action to positively change women and girls' lived realities. And that is what we are committed to seeing from the Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action Compact. I thank you for your attention. Over.
Thank you so much, Mimi Du, for that very powerful call to our fellow civil society actors to join the compact, support the compact, participate in its implementation of its framework by signing up as signatories. And several of you were asking how to join or if there's a list already of the signatories. I don't think there's a full list yet because we're still soliciting, making very, very strong calls for signatories. But my colleagues have shared the link so you can sign, and there's a few information that you need to provide when you click that link. So thank you so much, Mimi Du, for that very powerful call, and also emphasizing the importance of reaching out to women in local communities affected by conflict and humanitarian emergencies. Continuing on our program, I would like to call on Hila Yoon, the founder and head of the Afghan Youth Ambassadors for Peace organization. And I'm also proud to share she is the former fellow of the Korowai's Young Women Fellowship at the Global Network of Women Peace Builders. Hila, welcome. You have the microphone.
Thank you, Mavik. And good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and also as a member of the civil society board members of the WPS Humanitarian Action Coalition. As the founder of a grassroots civil society organization in Afghanistan, we all know the struggle of grassroots civil society organization and local peace builders, especially young women in conflict zone, and how the government, international communities, UN member states still have not reached out to these local communities, which are often affected by conflict. Violent extremism, gender-based violence, gender inequality, early forced child marriages are still one of the biggest and major issues at the local level and national level in Afghanistan. At the same time, considering the current situation in Afghanistan, we are seeing high civilian death rate and target killings of young activists and journalists on daily basis. We are in peace process right now with the Taliban, but the peace talks is hitting a block, and we see increase in violence in Afghanistan. Women and youth activists fear for their lives, and we cannot raise our voices because we all fear the next day we might get killed or targeted. In the current peace process, we can see the involvement of UN member state, international NGOs, UN, and other regional and national organizations. Yet youth and young women are excluded from decision-making processes. And this is not just happening in Afghanistan. But if we look at the countries like Bangladesh, Myanmar, Syria, Palestine, and Lebanon, the situation for young activists and young women are the same. Most of these countries, especially Afghanistan, also have a national action plan to implement women, peace, and security agenda. But why we don't see any significant changes in the lives of young women and activists? Because the implementation process of the national action plan in most of these countries are not inclusive. And a lot of these stakeholders lack political will to localize a women, peace, and security agenda at the local level and support grassroots civil society young activists. And this has resulted in the marginalization of young women peace builders and youth in the current peace process, but also in other decision-making processes. You cannot bring sustainable peace in any country by avoiding the half of population who live outside the capital. And that's why it's very important to not just focus on those young activists who live in the capital, but also most importantly focus on young peace builders and youth-led women-led movements at the local communities as well, which are mostly impacted by conflict. Given the existing structural gender inequalities, women and girls in conflict and crisis situation are at an increased risk of human rights violation. This also prevents them from fully benefiting, meaningfully participating, and leading efforts around peace and security, relief and recovery, and humanitarian action and assistance. Lack of adequate and flexible funding has been a serious and persistent obstacle in the implementation of commitments to women, peace and security, gender inequality, and the empowerment of women and girl humanitarian action. Speaking from my experience and working with the grassroots civil society organization and conflict zone, lack of funding, financial funding, is one of the core problems of a lot of youth activists and civil society organization in conflict-affected countries. That is why the Women, Peace and Security
Which review goes
humanitarian.
from the blue slot to the right.
Sorry for that. I think if you can all unmute mute your mics. That's why the Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action Coalition presents a very unique opportunity for grassroots peace builders to amplify their voices and meaningfully participate in decision-making processes. Now, the Combat Action Coalition and Humanitarian Action aims to mobilize an intergeneration inclusive movement for action in the next 5 years to implement all the existing commitment that already exists for women, peace and security agenda and humanitarian action. So the good thing about the Combat Coalition is that we are not creating something from the scratch. We already know what are the existing commitments that exist to implement women, peace and security agenda. And we also learned our lesson. We know that these are the gaps that existed in the past, and these are the methods that work in some countries, and these are the methods that did not work in these countries to advance the women, peace and security agenda. And most importantly, the Combat is very inclusive. It's not just reaching out to international organization, UN member state, but most importantly, it's also reaching out to grassroots civil society, youth movement and women-led movement and CSOs, NGOs in conflict-affected countries. And one of the important theme for me is the financing the women, peace and security agenda and humanitarian programming by the WPS and Compact Coalition. And the other important area that this compact is focusing on is how to protect human rights activists, which is very important in countries like Afghanistan, since we are all committed to advancing women, peace and security agenda, but at the same time, we also need safe spaces. And how we can get those safe spaces is by receiving help from this type of coalition that at the international level and at the national level as well. So this is why it's very important for civil society organization and grassroots civil society organization from conflict affected countries to be the signatory and be part of the action coalition, because if together we can reach out to so many communities at the same time. Now we saw the Mexico farm that happened already, and because it was fully digital online, it was very diverse, and a lot of youth activists from different countries were online. But at the same time, it's very important that we consider the digital divide that exists in conflict affected countries. Still, a lot of grassroots civil society youth activists do not have access to electricity, internet, and all the important things that they need to in order to participate in these forums, which are now, because of COVID-19, is virtual. And it's very important for the national civil society organizations that are part of the Action Coalition that they should reach out and support grassroots civil society youth activists and provide them the necessary facilities and support so they can join this forum. I know now it's COVID and we cannot reach out to many civil society organizations, especially at the local level, due to the pandemic, but also different security reasons. But if we are going to continue this platform online and virtually, it's also very important that we should consider the digital divide that exists in many countries, especially in Afghanistan. And it's important that the Combat Coalition should financially support national civil society organizations so they can support the grassroots civil society organization in order for them to meaningfully participate in the coming Paris Forum that is happening in a few days. So that's all I wanted to cover, and thank you so much, Maverick, for giving us the opportunity to present the organization and the Combat Coalition.
Thank you, Hila, and also for calling us to emphasize the potent contribution of young people, especially young women, in the implementation of the specific actions identified in the compact framework, but also reminding us about the vulnerability of young people in many parts of the world, including in your country. Afghanistan. I want to acknowledge the Honorable Senator Mary Lou McPhedran, from Canada, who has joined us. As some of you know, Canada is one of the catalytic members of the Compact and a strong supporter of the Women, Peace and Security agenda globally, as well as gender responsive humanitarian action. Thank you, Senator McPhedran, for joining us. You're welcome to share your thoughts on the chat box, and we will also make time later for you if you would like to make an intervention. Moving on with our program, I now would like to call on Ms. Pravina Makan-Laka, who is the advisor on Women, Peace and Security at the African Center for the Constructive Resolution of Disputes, or ACCORD. Pravina, like Gila and Mimidu Achakpa earlier, we would request you to tell us what are the key action areas of the Compact that you think ACCORD will contribute the most and why. You have the floor, Pravina.
Thank you very much, Mavic, and I hope you can all hear me clearly. Thank you to the organizers for this very timely consultation and also focusing it on civil society to engage. And really, speaker after speaker has already stated that the Women, Peace and Security agenda and how it has evolved is on the backs of civil society. So it would be really great now that we pause a few days before the Paris Forum and have this discussion on the institution. So I'm pleased to present in terms of ACCORD, and ACCORD is one of the board members on the Women, Peace and Security Humanitarian Action. And really, ACCORD has been in existence for almost 29 years now, has distinguished itself as one of the leading think tanks in Africa, number one on a number of rating agencies. And the issue of women, peace and security and ensuring the effective implementation of this agenda in peace efforts across the continent has been at the forefront of our work over this period, long before even the policy initiatives started to take form at the United Nations, etc. So it's really on the backbone of civil society and their efforts that we have also evolved our own agenda towards women, peace and security. And what have we been doing? And I think we have been at the forefront of efforts both nationally, and Mavic, you make comments to that in your introduction comments about the importance of national focus and that becoming more important now in a COVID-19 context. So we are proud to say that we have been engaged there in our efforts both nationally, regionally, and continentally in ensuring that women are participating in peace processes, that the issues affecting women are distilled to inform the right messaging of advocacy campaigns, and that women are leading on issues affecting them in peace efforts, the very foundations for which the normative frameworks have been established. So it's no surprise then that ACCORD chose to contribute most of its efforts on the issue of women's full and equal meaningful participation and inclusion of gender-related provisions in peace processes as the issue that would be most aligned to our work and our own strategy as an organization. And how do we foresee these areas and how would we contribute in terms of action? Firstly, we want to establish and strengthen partnerships with youth-led and young women-focused organizations and networks embedded in their priorities in terms of youth, WPS and WPS advocacy. So we think there's an importance on the intergenerational link between the advocacy messages. The second is that I think for too long, we talk only about women being at the forefront of these initiatives. We want to engage men and boys as allies and partners to support the work of women and girls on the gender equality and human rights without shifting support and resources away from women's rights advocacy and development. And we know that in the corridors of power, we have not transformed that space yet. So having allies in the men who are still holding those positions becomes important to realize these gaps we have been talking about. To support and undertake or fund research in this area, including, as Hila spoke before this, the importance of understanding what local context means, what local realities require in terms of a response and our pragmatic approaches in terms of our responses. So very important to develop policy recommendations, and the impact of women's meaningful participation is the emphasis on research and what kind of research. To provide technical and financial advisory support to women mediators, women peace builders involved in peace processes. And we're very happy to be linked to the Africa initiative in terms of FemWise Africa, which was a founding initiative of ensuring women's meaningful participation in peace processes, but not just as in our issues, but also leadership and mediating on these very initiatives. And then to undertake research, including by and with researchers in and from the global south, that addresses the root causes of conflict, the engaging obstacles to peace and gender equality to contribute to long-term solutions within peace processes, and the social, psychological, normative, and other behavioral barriers against women's active participation in peace efforts. So we foresee those as the key areas in terms of how we would want to play a role in this space. And I think, Mavic, for us, the Compact is a unique opportunity because it provides that comprehensive response that has been lacking, and that it connects the different efforts that have gained so much of momentum over this past 20 odd, maybe 30 years, let me say that, because although 1325 defines the space going forward formally, it's not that efforts for women, peace, and processes did not predate 1325. So I think it's an excellent connector of various efforts, and perhaps gives us a strongest background and effort to go forward. And let me stop there for a moment, and I'll come back later if necessary. Thank you very much, Mavic, and really great to be here amongst all of civil society and familiar faces, and also a shout out to Pi V for leading us at UN Women.
Thank you very much, Pravina. It's so great to have you here. And thank you for re-emphasizing the unique opportunity that the Compact presents because of its comprehensive, intersectional, and intergenerational nature. And we covered the most critical gaps in the last 20 years or so in terms of effective implementation of the Women, Peace, and Security Agenda and a gender-responsive humanitarian action strategy. I now would like to proceed to our civil society speakers, but before doing that, I just also want to mention that the Honorable Senator Mary Lou McVedran is a founding member of the Global Network of Women Peace Builders Board. I'm so excited about this conversation that I'm forgetting very important pieces of information. And I also now would like to acknowledge the presence of Ambassador Andre Mundal, who is the Special Envoy for Women, Peace, and Security of Norway. Welcome, Ambassador, and we will call on you later on the later part of the program. Now we move on with our civil society speakers. I present Miss Amani Aruri, a Palestinian human rights defender and a member of the Karama Network. Amani, you have the microphone.
Thank you, Mavic, and thank you for all the speakers after what Hila, Memidu, and Pravina mentioned. I don't know if there is much to add, but of course, I second all of what has been said about the importance of the importance of this compact and the priorities that need to be worked on together collectively by the different stakeholders. As Hila mentioned, of course, young people being in the forefront, defending women's rights and human rights, and being exposed to different kinds of threats, it's really important to have them at the table of decision making and having them and consider their priorities and their issues when designing such frameworks as well. So I think today as Karama, dedicated to ending violence against women and ensuring that women and girls are able to take part in decisions that affect them. The Karama Women's Network represents activists and women's groups working in 13 countries in the Middle East and North Africa, Mina is has been also experiencing extraordinarily high level of conflict in which women bear the burden of the effects while being excluded from political and diplomatic processes. As such, ensuring proper implementation of the Women, Peace and Security agenda has been a priority for Karama's network since its inception. So then our network represents the rich diversity of the region that we come from, and our work has sought to increase its inclusivity, notably with the recent Karama program for adolescent girls, which has further broadened the ability of the other partners to engage with young women and girls, often the marginalized groups in the region. So some countries in the region are still experiencing protracted conflict, especially like Syria, Libya, and Yemen. Others continue to suffer from the long-term impacts of past conflicts such as Iraq and Sudan. Political unrest, military rules, authoritarian governments, and failure to ensure the rule of law are also causing internal instability and further exacerbating the crisis in respecting, protecting, and fulfilling human rights. On top of that, of course, Palestine is still under the prolonged Israeli occupation, and on the internal level, unfortunately, we are experiencing unrest at the moment. So this is a context in which women are already marginalized in and excluded from decision making far more than any other region. The Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action Compact addresses and dismantles power imbalances to amplify the voices of those most impacted by global inequalities and least heard and in international spaces, and to ensure that these voices play a meaningful and central role in decision making and agenda setting processes. So the compact presents a critical opportunity to strengthen the inclusion also of young women peace builders and young women affected by crisis in peace, security, and humanitarian processes and efforts, including in the context of the implementation of youth peace and security agenda. That was also mentioned by the other colleagues. The compact also creates new strategic alliances between civil society and grassroots organizations, governments, private sector, and international organizations, and also other actors committed to gender equality and women's rights. It also commits to open and transparent decision-making and agenda setting, ensuring the voices and leadership of civil society, youth and grassroots feminist movement, and women and girls in all their diversity are at the core of the different groups of actions. So the compact framework also provides a clear path for different stakeholders to take concerted action on women, peace and security and humanitarian action. It brings together the extensive normative framework already committed, like mentioned, not starting from scratch, but rather emphasizing on existing commitments and responsibilities, and with also putting accountability framework to ensure effective implementation and to ensure that after 5 years, of course, the impact will be achieved. Thank you, everyone. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. But really, for other colleagues, you said it all, and it was really comprehensive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amani, for emphasizing that the compact framework also comes with an accountability mechanism to ensure that we are, to ensure that all of us are doing our part in the implementation of the specific actions that we ourselves collectively formulated. Thank you once again. And I want to acknowledge the presence of Ambassador Victoria Silimani, who is the Deputy Permanent Representative of the Permanent Mission of Sierra Leone to the UN. And Sierra Leone is one of the member states that are board members of the compact. Welcome, Ambassador, and we will hear from you later when you present your response to our civil society speakers. Moving on our program, I now call on Nyachangkut Rambang Tai, advocate from South Sudan and is a member of our Generation for Inclusive Peace. Nyachangkut, you have the microphone. Nyachangkut, you're muted.
Okay.
Now,
can you
please.
hear me now?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mavic. Thank you, GNWT, UN Women, and other related networks who made this event possible today. My name is Nyashankwa. I'm from South Sudan. I'm also a member of the OGIP network. I'm also the former assistant to the African Union chairperson advisor on policy and relations with the strategic relations at the African Union headquarters in Ethiopia. And also I'm a feminist and a women activist. It is pleasure to be here today and also to talk about, real things that can shape, the future of women in all spaces. Just to start, I'll start with a brief introduction of the OGIP network. Our Generation for Inclusive Peace network is a feminist organization and that aims to advance, shape, and influence the women, peace, and security agenda, youth peace and security agenda, and also to be more inclusive, intersectional, and also decolonized through advancing young voices and experiences. Also, it provides multimedia platforms for young voices to expand and push forward conversations on women, peace and security, and youth peace and security, as well as at the OGIP, we aim to advocate for the distribution of power in security spaces, aiming to contribute to an inclusive, positive peace and also positive society whereby women can, have spaces. I'm gonna make my presentation brief, but I will focus on the key questions that what are the key areas of actions, the compact that we think as a network that is, that will contribute the most and why. For us in our network, we think peace will be, committing to advocacy and programmatic actions under two of compact thematic areas. Firstly, women full and equal meaningful participation, and also inclusion of gender-related provisions in peace processes. And secondly, also women in leadership, agency, and across peace, security, and humanitarian sectors. Also for us, we think strongly of that because OGIP, in its pillars, it's looking at different experiences. We have members from different places on different parts of the world who, live the current reality and who bring also different expertise. And for that, we think that's why it is important for us to focus on the same pillars and also to concentrate on that. Also, where I come from, I'm just going to give an example. I'm from South Sudan, and I have seen where South Sudanese women sit at the forefront of fighting for climate change. I have a picture that I would like to share on the chat box, if that's okay, just to supplement and support what I'm trying and the example that I'm trying to give right now. I think I'm not in a position to upload the picture. Maybe I can.
Yeah, Nyachangkuth co-host, so she can share her screen.
As they're making me a co-host, just to save time, let me continue.
You are now. You can share your screen right now.
Okay. Just a minute. Share my screen. Share content.
Nyachankuth, I think it's still taking time. Maybe I suggest you just continue. Nyachankuth, would you just continue so we can, proceed with the program?
I'm back. Sorry, I got some internet.
Yeah, it might be an internet connectivity problem. I suggest you just continue as you were talking earlier.
All right. So in the picture that I wanted to share, and I can share it later with all of you, is that in Panjshir County, and that is in Unity State in South Sudan, there is a picture that shows women in the forefront of climate change. Women are trying to clear the ice strip, and they're trying to get rid of the water to make sure that flights land and to make sure that there is access, to humanitarian assistance, access also to, basic services. And in that picture, you see, these are the only people who are doing the work. But later on, when you come and see and you be part of decision-making processes, or you get to spaces where decisions are being made, you find women are excluded. Not the same women who are trying to fight against climate change, not the same women who are in the forefront of the climate change are the same women who are included in decision-making processes. You will find that there are so many committees that are being formed, and these committees lack women in that. Also, when it comes to issues of pollution, like oil pollution in South Sudan, you find so many women and girls get affected for that. The women are the ones who, by the end of the day, give birth to deformed children because of the pollution in those areas. But by the end of the day, when there are committees that are being formed for solution, women's perspective are not being included in these spaces because of their gender. And I think also this is one of the things that also the Generation Equality and also the Generation Equality Forum, ask for. Another thing also is that I think the compact presents a unique opportunity to further implementation of women, peace and security and frameworks, because it acts as a dedicated measure for the generation equality outcome. And looking at how the compact also focuses on financing, monitoring, and accountability, I think this is something the women, peace and security agenda lacks. And also how it acts as a connector between existing, women, peace and security, humanitarian action, normative, and also other frameworks, and as coordination mechanism. In the last intervention that I'm making to the question that why is it critical and it's important to have local women and civil society and youth included in this process, and also in the things that the Women, Peace and Security stands for. For me, I think women are the main actors and they cannot be excluded. They inspired the whole process. Also having local ownership over this process leads to whereby, it can be a generational, positive, deep-rooted change within the communities, and it can go for generations. The importance also of including the civil society groups lies into that. Civil society groups are the ones that have access to the grassroots. They're the ones who can raise awareness. They're the ones who can advocate. They're the ones who can create platforms for women, for communities to speak on such issues within their communities, and to make sure that all the pillars, for the generation equality frameworks and also generation equality forum is implemented. Also, when it comes to the last intervention I make on the importance of including youth, using South Sudan as an example, youth can really be used as a weapon for conflict or for peace. They can also be used, by the elders as the people who can really implement these harmful cultural norms, giving examples of cattle raiding, revenge killing, giving examples of the norms whereby the marriage of young girls are being commoditized and it has become a business. Youth play a very big role in that, in making conflict. So I think including youth in the process, it's important to have them as allies, because it's going to impact the process better and positive in a way that by the end of the day will lead to sustainable solutions. And thank you so much. Over to you, Mavic.
Thank you so much, Nyachankuth, and also for emphasizing climate change as an important component of our work on women, peace and security and gender responsive humanitarian action. And now we move on to the other exciting part of our discussion, which is the interaction with audience members. And I will now turn it over to my co-moderator, Ms. Malika Ayer, who is the Asia Programs Coordinator and Humanitarian Action Specialist at GNWP. Malika, over to you.
Thank you, Mavic. Thank you all to the speakers for your powerful interventions, and we want this conversation to be as interactive as possible. So if you would like to make an intervention to reflect on the compact, the framework that was presented, then please raise your hand and I will call on you. But first, I have the pleasure of turning the floor over to Melissa de los Angeles Herrera, who is a human rights lawyer from Colombia, and she is a member of the National Gender and Youth Activist Network. So Melissa, over to you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you very much to the Global Network of Women Peace Builders for the participation of young women from the Latin American and the Caribbean region in this important space. For us, the PAC is an opportunity for the fulfillment of existing commitments and for the accountability of states, UN entities, NGOs, the private sector, and academia. It is an opportunity to collect the change we want to see in 5 years and beyond. We recognize effort of the Compact's members and identify concrete action in key areas of agenda such as financing, meaningful participation, women's leadership, access to economic, security, and protection. Currently, children, youth, and women in the region face situations of conflicts, crisis, and rising social instability with differentiated impacts of gender, race, class, and age. We are experiencing the appropriation of land, resources, our bodies and sexualities, and an increase in violence against women and youth defenders of territory. We call for the youth in the region to have our own voice in this pact, that the states in which we live, the companies and organizations that work in our communities be included and feelings about that our interlocutor recognize our call. Nothing about us without us. These diverse youth have worked on a battery of crucial commitments to be made by states, UN agencies, philanthropy, donors, and civil society organizations to advance gender equality and youth rights. We are here to tell you that our demands, which are aligned with the frameworks, need to be heard, which are states that sanction institutional violence, eliminate compulsory military service, improve justice and prison system of reintegration, establish indicators to monitor the women peace, security, and humanitarian and related agendas. United Nations agencies that were articulated to eliminate gender-based violence, immigration, and humanitarian context, guarantee access to justice and welfare for women human rights defenders, share accessible information on their role in Resolution 2250. Philanthropy tax provide flexible and transparent funding for youth organizations working in peace, security, and humanitarian action. Support rapid response to threats and the building of support network. Civil society tax has a work plan engaged territorial civil society, visibilize the diverse of youth in the regions, generate collective memory of violence against human rights defenders. In order to strengthen this alliance that begins today, we propose the following. First, guarantee the accessibility of the space for dialogue with interpretation and list in Spanish, Portuguese, and sign language. Two, guarantee our participation in the implementation plan toward 2026 and in different strategies. Three, include within incision as a PAC and collaborative session that put in contact the young activists or region with the member and the PAC secretariat. We have a dream that I will be called New and Commitment Gender, Youth and Peace. Thank you very much for your attention. I bid you farewell with congratulations and reiterating the commitment of Latin American and Caribbean youth to peace, security, and humanitarian action. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for highlighting that the compact is so relevant to peace, security, and humanitarian action in Latin America and the Caribbean. And we need Latin American women's civil society groups and youth organizations to be key actors in the effective implementation of the compact framework. So we need to spread the word about the compact, raise awareness, and ensure that there is national and local ownership for the compact framework and its effective implementation. So thank you very much. I just want to take a moment to recognize the presence of other catalytic members of the compact, including the Women's Refugee Commission, Women's International Peace Center, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, People Beyond Borders, and ICANN. And if any of you would like to make an intervention in your role as compact catalytic members, please feel free to raise your hand and I can give you the floor. I will pass it over to Wasma Niaz. Could you please introduce yourself and share the country you're dialing in from as you make your intervention? Wasma, are you still interested in speaking? You just need to unmute your mic. Oh, I think we lost Wasma, so apologies about that. You can speak at a later time. But yeah, I'd just like to open the floor up if anybody has any reflections or questions on the role of the compact in accelerating the implementation of the Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action Frameworks, or what your role can be as a civil society activist in that. Stephanie, yeah, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be with you. This is Stephanie from the Women's Refugee Commission. I just wanted to make a comment that WRC has signed on to the compact, and we're really excited to see such a diverse civil society movement carrying the compact. Maybe in terms of commitments, I think for those who are not that familiar with the compact, it's always a bit of a daunting challenge, but I just want you to encourage you to look at the action list in the compact, because a lot of the actions there that are subscribed to civil society is work that you have been already doing. So again, just encouraging you to take a closer look at the commitments and really looking forward to the launch on Friday. Over.
Thank you, Stephanie. That's a very good point. Maya from GPAC, over to you.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to some of you. Probably this is Maya Majstorovic from GPAC, which is one of the catalytic members, sharing with everybody that I'm just about to submit the form for our commitment. We are very much looking forward to signing on to this compact. And as Stephanie has put really, really eloquently, look at the actions. I wanted to share that on our end, the commitments that we are making with signing on to the compact are nothing new. So we are already committing to what we have committed to our members and also to broader constituency that we will be doing in further promoting implementation of women, peace and security. So sharing that from our end. And in that spirit, I also want to throw out a question or a reflection from our end. And that's also looking beyond Paris, like kind of what comes next in order to keep the spirit, but also engagement and activity alive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maya. And we're so happy to have GPAC as a catalytic member of the compact. And in terms of what's after Paris, I think that's a good question. So if any of the civil society compact board members would like to reflect on that, just raise your hand on your particular vision for what you would like to see from the compact as we move forward with implementation of the framework. I will now pass the floor over to Stacy from ICANN.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Malika and Mavic, for GNWP's leadership and as a member of the board in developing this compact and sharing it with civil society. ICANN is a catalytic member and we have signed on to the compact and all of the civil society commitments in the areas of financing the WPS agenda, protection and women's participation. Like other organizations, these commitments are very much in line with the work that we're already doing, including our She Builds Peace campaign to stand with women peace builders. And they very much align with the frameworks for action regarding financing women's participation and protection. So I can share some links in the chat, but we're very much hoping that our frameworks can help provide support to states and multilateral organizations who sign on to the compact in terms of how to implement the recommendations to further advance them. So so we're very happy to watch the launch this week and support everyone signing on. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. I don't see any other raised hands, so we are going to turn it over to the two member state compact board members that are present with us for their reflections to the interventions made so far. But before I do, I'd like to hand the floor back over to Mavic Cabrera-Beleza to share GNWP's commitments and our hopes for what comes after Paris.
Thank you, Malika. And to add on to our civil society colleagues, some or most of the specific actions identified for civil society are not entirely new. And we've been not only calling for them, but we've actually actively contributed to implementing them. For the Global Network of Women Peace Builders, we commit to facilitating systematic linkage of informal peace processes with official and formal peace processes, because this is the only opportunity to ensure that the vast networks and organizations of women and young women peace activists supported by men and boys who are our allies in advancing gender equality and women's rights, particularly on women, peace and security and humanitarian action, could be realized. And continuing on that, we also commit to facilitating a process to ensure that our men and boys colleagues are able to support us, to support women and young women in our diversities, so that together we effectively attain these agendas which are dear to our hearts. And I announced that we are definitely one of the signatories of the compact, and we will be officially registering that today. Without further ado, I now would like to move on to the next and very important final part of our program, which is to call on two important member state board members of the compact, both of whom are global leaders on the women, peace and security agenda and gender responsive humanitarian action. I first would like to call on Ambassador Victoria Silimani, the Deputy Permanent Representative of the Permanent Mission of Sierra Leone to the United Nations. Ambassador, you've heard our civil society colleagues present their priorities and the specific actions that they would like to contribute to as formulated in the compact framework. What are your thoughts on them? How do you think we as civil society and member states can effectively work together? Over to you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much. And then I really want to applaud this initiative because Paris is just 2 days away. I want to believe those who will be attending the in-person meeting, the opening, should have started arriving by tomorrow at the latest. So a brief session to raise awareness on this compact and its framework is the move in the right direction. So I say kudos to you and all those that co-sponsor this event. The WPS-HA compact, we are all aware, provides an opportunity for concerted action in women, peace and security and gender responsive humanitarian action to ensure that we achieve positive transformative results for women and girls and all populations in conflict-affected situations and humanitarian emergencies. As a board member and of course as a signatory, we just did, yes, we have signed and now it is official that Sierra Leone is signatory to the compact. Sierra Leone's priority is to ensure the meaningful participation of local women and youth peace builder in all peace processes and to protect their rights. We have been in conflict situations before, a 10-year devastating civil conflict that brought untold suffering on our people. So I am speaking from that angle. To make this happen, we will continue to advocate for and adopt specific tools to increase women and young women's meaningful participation, including through special measures and targets and codes of conduct that guarantee women's inclusion. Today, girls and women continue to face significant risk and adversity because of their work in their communities to prevent violence and address conflict. We've been there, done that. We've seen it in Sierra Leone. Furthermore, many girls and women do not enjoy their rights and remain vulnerable to violent systems that exclude them from decision making. This framework provides us with a roadmap to ensure that girls and women are protected in line with UN Security Council Resolution 1325 and their participation in decision-making processes, including in this compact, is prioritized. Sierra Leone supports and we commend the compact members. Of course, we are a member and our efforts at ensuring that youth and women are involved. I want to thank and applaud women and youth present here today who are committed to this process despite the limitations they face. As a board member and a signatory, as I just stated, Sierra Leone will continue to develop and implement laws and to ensure gender-based violence against women, all women and girls are eliminated, including women peace builders. Sierra Leone, in concluding, I wish to assure the women, peace and security and humanitarian action stakeholders of our unwavering support in meeting our targets in this compact. I avail myself of this opportunity to call on other member states, civil society, regional organizations and foundations to join this effort and become signatory to the compact. For together, we will all realize gender equality, inclusive and sustainable peace, and gender-responsive humanitarian action. I thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Silimani, for announcing Sierra Leone as one of the signatories of the compact. We look forward to working more closely with you in the attainment of the specific actions formulated in the compact framework. And now I have the honor to call on another member state's global leader on the Women, Peace and Security agenda and the gender responsive humanitarian action, and a member of the board of the compact, Ambassador Andre Mondal, who is the Special Envoy of Norway for Women, Peace and Security. Ambassador Mondal, welcome, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Mavic. It is great to be here with you all. I'm glad I got to listen in for a little while, as there have been many great and interesting interventions. I just came out of a high-level panel on Yemen, where we have supported the making of a national action plan and are also supporting with expertise in its implementation. And as I think you're all well aware, the problems are often the same around the world. Women are not given a seat at the table where decisions are taken. But another aspect that is also the same is that women are so competent, so experienced, and so ready everywhere. So I hope that this argument of women not being ready soon will be dead and buried forever. Because as you all know, women are ready to be whatever they aspire to be, as long as rules and culture and other man-made obstacles do not stop them anymore. So I just want to start with saying that I admire the work that you are all doing. Your determination and stamina is really impressive. And yet, the only thing that we all can do going forward, all of us that are promoting the Women, Peace and Security agenda, is to keep up the hard work and also broaden our base. We need more women and more men on board because, I mean, you're all walking in the right direction, and that is towards sustainable peace for all. And we just need to succeed because there is no other way. What is frustrating is that you're not really asking for much. How difficult should it be for all of us, both men and women, to understand that it's only natural and right that half the population have an equal say on all matters concerning their own future? I mean, it's so very basic. And not just that, it's also important for everyone, particularly men, I would say, to understand that it's not like women are intruding on matters that are already working and that we should not fix what is not broken. Because are we really living in a world where men have been succeeding brilliantly in dealing with peace and security issues without the inclusion of women? I do not think so. That's not what we see, because things are often broken. The suffering, the death toll, the humanitarian consequences, it all speaks for itself. So we seriously need to change. And at the core of that change is the full, equal, and meaningful participation of women. which also applies to the protection agenda. We can talk about all kinds of protection efforts day in and day out. But really, the best protection women can ever have is participation. It's the only way to end the never-ending cycle of victimizing women. So needless to say, Norway welcomes the compact, and we will be a signatory. We will lean forward and we will be ambitious. But I don't want to sell you a dream we cannot fulfill, because there is a lot Norway and other countries can do. But our efforts can never substitute the lack of political will elsewhere. And here you are key. You are key to broaden the base, keeping governments responsible for promises made and for keeping up the pressure. It's like I always say about Norway as well. Our political leadership did not just wake up in the 70s and 80s one day and out of nowhere decided that gender equality, that's a good idea. No, civil society was pushing and pushing and pushing. And it is hard. It is so hard. But there are no shortcuts. And we must not believe otherwise, because we will fool ourselves of the real efforts needed, of the cost needed. But I have no doubt that in the end, we will all triumph, because I genuinely believe that over time, what is right will prevail. So again, we will be ambitious in the compact in terms of funding, in terms of advocacy, in terms of policy and programming. But more importantly, I want to use this opportunity to encourage you all to do the same. Because the stronger you are, the more fierce you are, the more political will come as a result. So thank you so much for having me here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Mundal, for your passion and commitment to the realization of the effective implementation of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda and gender-responsive humanitarian action strategies. And I also should mention that Norway is a member of the Security Council, which give us an important connecting point to from our work in the compact to the Security Council. You've shared many important messages, but my own interpretation is that you remind us that once again that we should not hesitate to call out member states, the UN, regional organizations, and all other stakeholders when women are not acknowledged, not valued, not supported for being leaders and decision makers on this agenda and other political processes. Thank you once again. And we are very efficient with time, and we actually only have 1 minute for the closing. So at this point, I want to underscore once more the importance of broad ownership of the compact for us to be able to translate the specific action points into real action, to translate the commitment into achievements in the implementation of the Women, Peace and Security resolutions and a gender-responsive humanitarian strategy. Please register your intent to be a signatory of the compact, especially today, so you can be included in the announcement during the official launch of the compact on July 2nd at the Generation Equality Forum in Paris. And since I have the floor, and I also want to use my privilege as co-organizer of this event, I would like to share with you that the Global Network of Women Peace Builders, in partnership with the Austrian Development Cooperation, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development and CARE, will be organizing an event entitled Understanding the Triple Nexus Through a Gender Lens on 30th of June at 11:40 a.m. Paris time. Thank you, everyone, and stay safe and healthy, and looking forward to seeing you at the Generation Equality Forum in Paris, and virtually for most of us. This meeting is now officially closed.